Good morning for everybody that's here and then online. Welcome to our meeting today. This is the Thursday, October 12th MSWRRAC meeting. What we'll do is just do introductions. We'll go around the board, have everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll do those online and then the public. All right.
Good morning. I'm Cheryl Murga with HGAC, Houston Galveston Area Council, and I represent a planning region.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Steve Shannon. I'm representing State of Texas Alliance for Recycling and representative from a private environmental conservation organization.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Mayfield with the North Texas Municipal Water District, and I represent a public solid waste district or authority.
Good morning, Frank Pugsley with Park Hill, and I am a professional engineer at a private engineering firm with experience in design and operation of municipal solid waste facilities.
Good morning, I'm Chuck Rivette. I work for Waste Management. I'm a solid waste professional with experience managing and operating a commercial solid waste landfill.
Thank you. Good morning, Scott Pasternak with Burns & McDonnell, representing the general public.
And I'm Dave Yonke with New Gen Strategy Solutions, representing the financial community.
Good morning, Scott Trebus. I work with Republic Services, and I represent a solid waste management organization that is responsible for commercial operations.
Good morning, Judge David Dillard, representing counties of any size.
Charlie Fritz, Deputy Director of the Waste Permits Division within TCEQ.
Megan Henson, TCEQ MSW Permits Section Manager.
Anna Yeroff, TCEQ MSW Technical Specialist. Almost forgot. Next, I will take roll for anybody that is online. I will call your name out. First, we have Risa Weinberger.
I'm Risa Weinberger with Risa Weinberger and Associates, and I represent composters and environmental educators.
Richard Abramowitz. Jennifer Lutz.
Jennifer Lutz. I'm with Silver Creek Materials, representing the land reclamation project using tire facilities.
Hoppy Hayden. Ralph Gutierrez.
Ralph Gutierrez, Mayor, City of Schertz.
Clifton Brock Lively.
Clifton Brock Lively with the City of Plainview, and I'm a representative of a municipality or county solid waste agency.
Okay, next I'll take roll of everybody else in the room. First, we have
Madison Howard with Municipal Solid Waste Permits.
And I'm Savannah Rains, also with MSW Permits.
Danielle Lessaker, Assistant Deputy Director of Waste Permits.
Barbara Coombs, Environmental Benchmarking, former recycling coordinator that led a city to 64% recycling rate.
Richard McHale, City of Austin.
Adam Berkland, Waste Connections.
Larry Lane with Texas Disposal Systems.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And again, welcome. I think this is a good time before, Charlie, I have you go. We've got some new appointments, reappointments, and some new folks. If I mess anything up here, I know Anna will correct me. So, but here we go. So with regard to a new gentleman joining us, Ralph Gutierrez, City of Schertz, thank you for joining us. He's representing, again, elected official from a municipality with a population between 25,000 and 100,000. Jeff Mayfield got reappointed, so glad to have you back. We already heard about what his position is. Clifton Brock from Plainview. Again, welcome, glad you're here. He represents a city or a county solid waste agency. Scott Pasternak with Burns and McDonald, representing the general public, was reappointed. David Dillard was reappointed, so glad to have you back again. And let's see, I was reappointed for 2 more years to serve as the Advisory Council President. And then Hoppy Hayden with the Caldwell County Judge, represented a county with a population of less than 150,000. He was appointed back in April, but this is potentially his 3rd meeting he's missing, so I'll leave the paperwork to you folks, but I think if you miss 3, there's some stuff we have to look at. So other than that, we're pretty full. We've got, again, we continue to have challenges filling those larger city positions, but you know, I'm happy with the new members. Again, everyone that re-upped, thank you, and the new folks, thank you. I do want to recognize also Richard McHale's here with City of Austin, and he had served, so thanks for your time. Now you get to be in the spectator seat. I think that's
Yankee,
everything.
I understand that Hoppy Hayden joined.
Great.
Yes, I'm here.
Hoppy. Good. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, apologies for missing the first 2. We had kind of a huge economic development deal going on, and I was up to my eyeballs in it, but we're done now, so.
All right. Well, glad to have you here. All right.
And good morning. Thank you, David, for agreeing to be president, and thank you all again, new members, continuing members. We really appreciate all your work, all your input on this committee. So a couple updates from Waste Permits Division. Danielle introduced herself. She is the new Assistant Deputy Director, so she's assistant to me. We had an Assistant Deputy Director for a while, and then sunset happened, and I lost Jean to that project for a while. Jean moved on to a different position, and so we were able to hire Danielle as the new Assistant Deputy Director. So welcome, Danielle. A little bit of updates on implementation. So we are working on the implementation agency-wide. Again, most of this actually all of the implementation is being run at an agency level. So Waste Permits are just contributing to the overall input on how the agency is going to implement all of the sunset requirements that are going on. A couple things you'll probably see in the upcoming, and I'm talking 6 months to a year, so nothing is happening quickly right now. You'll probably start to see some changes of us trying out new things at public meetings. Public meetings was a very hot topic during the sunset discussion, and so we're trying to figure out how to communicate with the public, how to make public meetings more organized. So we're going to you'll probably see a lot of just trying out handouts, behind the scenes, process improvements. You'll probably see more different explanations than you're used to during the public meeting. So right now we're in the brainstorming stage, but I see as we start identifying good ideas we're trying those ideas out at public meetings. So I don't have an answer of how we're going to fix it. It's probably going to be trial and error to see what goes well and what helps the public out. We're continuing to work on the posting applications and annual reporting for a couple subset of MSW recyclers and scrap tires. That is continuing. Again, I don't see anything happening for more than 6 months. So that's something we're still working on, but it's not a rush. We're working on it as we can. Still going down the road of TCEQ will take over posting MSW applications. That's still the direction we're headed right now. But again, at the agency sunset team is making decisions on overall processes, and we're just contributing. We're working on the HB 3060 implementation. This was the advanced recycling bill. So it makes changes in Chapter 330, the MSW rules, Chapter 335, and recycling, and we're actually adding in the recycling chapter this time, 328. This will be a straight ledge implementation, so taking the statute language and adding it to the rules. We are also making a couple of minor non-substantive updates of just fixing some errors, fixing titles, and then seeing what we can do to help us kind of fix those rules that have are kind of those descriptive rules of how we receive applications. You see the box of binders back there. We really need to figure out how to start moving away from so many paper applications. So those might be some changes you see in there too, but the main focus, the substance, is the HB 3060 implementation. The exceptional item request for additional salaries the agency requested has been distributed. The agency worked very hard and was able to implement and increase salaries for a lot of staff on 9/1. So all that additional money was allocated immediately on 9/1, and most staff, and especially technical staff, so the permanent reviewers, did see various amounts of salary increases. And then last update is just want to make you all aware that Railroad Commission is proposing, it's a proposal. It's not an actual proposed rule yet, but they're doing a pre-proposal informal comments on a very oil and gas rule, but there is a small subset of changes proposed regarding special waste and how oil and gas special waste processes between Railroad Commission facilities and TCEQ permitted facilities. So just want to make you all aware of that. Right now, again, it's just pre-proposal, so informal comments. I don't know, they'll be going through their process of how they handle informal comments and then if they propose it. That is all I have, so any questions for me?
Yeah, I had a couple, and then we'll open it up to everyone else as well here. On the social media, so yeah, trying to reach out. My three boys in their 20s constantly tell me how out of touch I am. So with all the different social media, so what are we trying, is TCEQ trying different things to reach different folks, or what's the strategy there?
It's definitely, we do have media coordinators that do a lot of the social media. And then is it the question about public meetings or just in general?
Just in general with that. I mean, you're gonna have the public meetings, but I think the public meetings, if you're gonna have good participation, people have to be aware of them.
Right. So we do have social media coordinators, or media coordinators. They handle all of that. The program areas work with, send them content to post on social media. So it's really the program areas remembering to send the social media coordinators information about public meetings, information about other events going on. So and then they do a good job reminding us of if they need something, if they know about something. So it's definitely something we really do. The agency has said that we need to get better at it, but it's difficult. So we're trying, and we just try. We definitely do have a Facebook and Twitter presence. I won't say how much I know about that, so either.
Okay. And then with Sunset, you said there were a lot of, a number of things you're working on. Is there a listing of what the priorities are or whatever that you could, share with the council? I think it would be helpful after all the legislative meetings, hearings, et cetera, if there was just something that kind of, here's the top 10, 20, things you're focused on, that'd be great.
There is, we'll find the page and send it out to the council. There is an agency webpage that kind of lists how we're going about implementing Sunset at the agency level. I think that would be, I'll send that to y'all, and then next meeting, we can see, what questions you have about that, or if we need to prioritize further. As we've discussed, Sunset was very focused at the agency level. There were no waste-specific items. So again, a lot of MSW's input is just those couple of items of posting applications, the annual reporting for those open-ended permits, and then kind of just input on the other topics, the web pages, the public meetings. So that's kind of where our focus has been.
Okay. And just my last question, what can you share as far as salary, like if the ranges of increases or whatever? 'Cause I know that was a huge issue.
Well, it's public info. So what we did was we adjusted a lot of this. So a lot of this is, you need to know how the state salary works. And so there's classifications. Each classification has different levels. And then there's salary groups tied to each classification. That salary group dictates the minimum salary and the maximum salary for that classification, for that salary group. So we did we revised some salary groups. We increased a lot of the salary groups to increase the minimum and maximum salaries for that classification. So that was across a lot of classifications. And then I think the big thing is that we increased all salaries to the 31st percentile of that salary group. And so no longer if a position becomes vacant, does it salary drop to the minimum of that group. Instead, we start at the 31st percentile of that salary group.
Okay. No, appreciate that. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. How is it coming along in terms of filling vacant positions?
Yeah. So, are you talking about that?
I wasn't, but I can't.
Okay. Nah. So, it's definitely, we are, okay. Megan's going to talk about staffing, but overall, it's definitely helped, and we're seeing our positions getting filled. I think some of the technical positions, we'll still have to get some more postings to see how professional engineers are going to be filled, how professional geologists, geoscientists. But for the other positions, definitely has seen an increase in the number of applicants and our ability to have a good applicant pool to hire from. So we've had a couple engineering permit specialists filled recently that had good applicant pools. We have a number of our information coordinator for our webpage updates that had a good applicant pool. So we're seeing larger applicant pools. We still need a couple more postings on the engineers and geoscientists to see how the salaries are impacting those.
I just have a quick question. So for the salary adjustments, was that for the entire TCEQ or waste permits?
That was the entire TCEQ.
Okay,
yes.
Great. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay.
Charlie, thank you.
I've got 549. You want to talk 549?
Oh,
account 549
sure.
real quick?
Sure.
Okay.
Money.
So when this came up, I think it was a couple of meetings ago when it was asked about, I believe this all started when TCEQ put out their recommendation of changing the allocation between 5,000 and 549. I can't remember how this all got started. But legislative session happened, and then right at the end of legislative session, it was brought forward that account 549 and 5,000, combining account 549 and 5,000. So that's basically what happened at the end of session, is that those two accounts were combined. Account 5,000 had a balance of approximately 144 million. So all of that was transferred into account 549. So account 549 now has a pretty large fund balance. However, with all the salary increases and our costs, we do see a continual cost increase. Our expenses do continue to exceed revenue, even with the additional So all of 5,000 revenue is now into 549 as well, in addition to what was already in 549. So our costs do continue to exceed revenue, but not significantly. It's about $5 million per year, $5 to $7 million per year projections. All that, by the way, all this is projections. And so we have that balance as a buffer right now. So the agency's strategy right now, we are definitely understand, we can't operate like this to have cost exceed revenue. So we are going to, over the next years, and so this is not going to be something that happens this year. It's going to be a strategic look at all the fees that pay into now account 549, and see what their costs are, see how much revenue they're gaining, and really look at how we can be strategic and make Fund 549 solvent for a long time. So that's the plan. Like I said, we do have an account balance as a buffer right now to look at this. If we talk about increases later on, phasing in increases. So we definitely think that combining the account balances was a good idea because it gives us that buffer to address how to get revenue equal to cost.
Can I ask a quick question on that? So, you know, we've talked a lot over the years about Fund 5,000, but I apologize. The 549, is that basically like TCEQ's operating?
Yes. Yeah. So originally it was 549 was the agency's municipal solid waste fund for MSW programs, both permitting, enforcement, administrative and support activities. So anything waste was funded out of 549. Anything municipal and hazardous waste, remediation has their separate account. So those two programs were out of 549. 5,000 was specifically set aside for the Regional Solid Waste Grants program. And that's where the tipping fee was split between the two. Mm-hmm. And so now with combining them, all the revenue is in one fund. All the expenditures come from that. And we still have, in our budget, we still have the $5.49 million to the Regional Solid Waste Grants.
Okay.
One thing I will add that there is, I forgot to count, but I think it's about 20 different fees go into account 549. So it's not just solely the solid waste disposal fee, the tipping fee, but there's a wide variety of, there's the radioactive site license application fee, the voluntary cleanup program application fees, sludge haulers, medical waste transporter. So there's a lot of fees that go into account 549. However, the MSW disposal fee and the IHW management fee, so the equivalent tipping fee, those are the two big ones that contribute more than 80% into account 549.
Charlie, you said 5.49 million to the solid waste grants?
Yes.
Is that a hard number now? It used to kind of be a percentage split.
It's, so the revenue to account 5,000 and 549 was the percentage split. Right. So the allocation between the two. The 5.49 million that's awarded to the COGS, that's always been a budgetary number of, it's in our budget, and it's set at 5.49 million per year.
Okay. Thanks.
Good. Any other questions on that?
Yeah. So Charlie, can you describe what the administrative process would look like if you're able to adjust those fees? The approval? Yeah, it's, one thing there's no cat in the bag. All of these are statute, most are statute set. And so the statutes may give us the ability to set a fee, but most have some sort of maximum tied to them. And I can say that most of them are probably at the maximum already. So I think the first step will be
discussions with stakeholders to let them know that TCEQ needs to address the statutes. Because I think we saw that with the facility fee when we increased the generator fee and the management fee. We did not adjust the IHW facility fee because those were already set, most facilities were already at the maximums, and so increasing them would see a very insignificant increase in fees. So we just didn't even address that. So that's something that's going to have to be across all those 20-plus fees that we need to, the TCEQ will need to start reaching out to address the statutes. Then we'll start having the rulemaking discussions of probably stakeholder meetings before, not probably, we will, I mean, because fees are so important to everybody, we will have stakeholder meetings before and then go through the rulemaking process of increasing those fees if they need to be increased. So a lot of this is the first step is studying to understand what are the costs in the agency and do the fees pay for those costs.
So can I ask, I'm not a lawyer, is that something that is done internally then with stakeholders, or does that have to go to the commissioners? Is that legislative?
The statute part is legislative, so we do have an internal process for requesting legislative changes. I can tell you that we probably don't know the exact process, but through MSWRRAC, we will seek input. We're not going to our first conversation is not going to be with the legislature. It's going to be a conversation with everybody, honestly.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Yeah, Charlie, thanks for that additional information, and really appreciate that commitment to keeping the MSWRRAC advised of that progress, and if appropriate, and I know this would need to be a decision made by the broader composition of MSWRRAC, but if you would like for us to ever consider a resolution or something along those lines to express our potential support for those types of fees, and again, not assuming that everybody would agree to that, because I know that a number of you all represent facilities that have to pay those various fees, so I'm not suggesting that at all, but I think it's a really important topic that we provide leadership to, because expenses are going up all across the board. I know Dave later on is going to talk about those of us who are at the Municipal Solid Waste Management Association Summit earlier this week up in Minnesota, and a lot of the discussion there was talking about how important it is to focus on the need for increasing fees because costs are going up so substantially. So, yeah, I consider this to be a really critical issue for the long-term success of everything that you all are doing for Texas and Texans. So definitely would like to have continued conversations on that.
Absolutely, and again, we're not in being transparent and MSWRRAC. I will say that I guess you all have a couple fees. I'm looking down the list. You all have the big one, the solid waste disposal tipping fee. A lot of the other fees are in different program areas, radioactive, a couple, the voluntary cleanup program. So we'll definitely keep you apprised of the MSW ones. You just may not hear about discussions on the ones outside the MSW program. But again, it's we don't want anybody to be surprised with any legislative discussions or with any rulemaking discussions. So we'll definitely figure out how to keep stakeholders involved.
And sorry, just one other comment. I know in other forums where we have talked about specifically the MSW disposal fee, I think, a lot of, whether it's private facilities or municipalities, probably when they hear that fee is going to potentially increase, they're probably going to be reluctant and want to push back against that just because that's human nature to not want to see costs increase. But again, as much as you all can be very proactive in communicating what the rationale is and that fee has been set at the same level for now such a long period of time, I think would be very beneficial to the process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, great. Anything else? All right.
No? Any other questions?
All right.
Okay.
Charlie, thank you. Next up, Megan's going to give us the MSW permits section update.
Good morning, everyone. Starting with Steve's question about staffing and filling our vacancies. So we did hire 4 new staff since our last meeting. 3 of those are environmental permit specialists and 1 is a geoscientist. We do have 5 vacancies. 3 of those are engineers, and some of you may have worked with Steve O'Dill. He was with the section for many years. He retired over the summer. So that's a hard one to fill, but we're working on it. And then we also still have 1 geoscientist and 1 environmental permit specialist. So as Charlie mentioned, those technical positions are still difficult to fill. We're hopefully seeing an increase in the salary will get more people to apply. But by the next meeting, who knows, we may have full staff, knock on wood. So that's that for the staffing. And then for major applications, we have 22 permits under review and 7 registrations. So holding steady about those same numbers as last time. Do want to announce we have officially published the MSW annual report. So those of you here got a hard copy. We do have a limited number of hard copies available, and it is available online as well. There's some formatting differences from previous years. We actually brought back an executive summary from, I think it was like 2014 was when that went away. So we see the benefit of having the executive summary back at the front, and that way you can get those high numbers or those high data points. We also added infographics, so pulling out those important data points. So when you flip through, you'll now see little boxes, typically blue, kind of a faded blue, with that key data point that we know we're interested in, as well as stakeholders and readers of this report. So definitely took some of that feedback that we got from stakeholders of it is a long report and it can be a little daunting to pick out those key pieces of information. So we wanted to pull those out, that way they're easier to find. You'll also still see those similar tables from previous years, pie charts, that stayed in the report. And then we shuffled a little bit. If you're one to compare one report to the other, we shuffled some of the information. So the most important stuff is at the front, and then the about the report section is actually at the back. So definitely exciting to have that finished. Thank you to everyone in MSW who participated, and of course to the facilities for meeting that rule requirement. It is required, but we are no less appreciative when it's done. Wanted to cover a couple of the highlights, and again, you'll actually see those in those infographics. There were 200 active landfills in 2022, so that's an increase of 1 from the previous year. And over 39 million tons of waste were disposed last year, so quite a bit. And the per capita disposal rate increased to 7.25 pounds per person per day. So those are a couple of the key points there, but again, there's tons of information in this report that you can check out. Speaking of which, there's no rest for the weary. We're kicking off the 2023 report. We've actually had some facilities go ahead and submit their data, so that's awesome. We get an early start on that. An announcement went out in October, and you can submit reports online through email or through mail, and there's instructions on how to submit the report through Steers, which is our online system. So check out our annual report page for more information on submitting those reports. Any questions on the annual report?
I just want to tell you thank you, and I still enjoy getting a hard copy and sitting and highlighting and putting Post-its on stuff. So I think this is one of the best outreach things the solid waste, the MSW permits group puts out. So thank you.
Thanks, appreciate that feedback. All right. The next topic is trade fair, which is May 2024. So it's kind of far out there, but we start preparing as early as December. And we're soliciting input from stakeholders on topics that y'all would like to hear from MSW or from other industry leaders. So just kind of background of what we look for when we're putting together our trade fair tract for MSW. We try to have a mix of administrative and technical topics and also vary a range of beginner presentations and more intermediate or advanced technical topics. So an example of an administrative topic would be the common notice of deficiencies presentation that we gave last year. And then an example of a technical topic is requirements for building over a closed landfill. That's another one from last year. So if y'all have suggestions, key things you want to hear about, you want to learn more about, and it would be appropriate for a broader audience. Obviously, we don't want to get facility specific in a presentation. Please let us know. We really want to make sure the trade fair is useful for all attendees and that we're communicating the information that y'all are most interested in.
Is there a specific person you'd like us to contact?
Me.
You. All right.
Me, or you can also email mswper@tcq.texas.gov. Do y'all have any off the top of your head that we should just start considering now?
I don't have a topic, but long time ago, we used to have options for Texas when we still had the split between the hazardous group and the MSW group. And one of the trademarks of the options for Texas is they had case histories, examples, and we backed away from it for a lot of reasons. I don't know any of which I can remember, but I think there was a concern because the case histories were often given by non-state employees. They were given by consultants or things like that. And I think there was a concern that it was a advertising campaign. And I wouldn't advise going back to it, but you may want to consider just maybe one or two, and you can make it generic. You can have it presented by TCEQ staff and take off anybody's logo or whatever you want to do. But people like case histories at technical shows.
So just to be clear, you want to give a couple examples of what you're thinking about there?
Well, I got to go back, 20-some years, but I remember a guy named Jim Nordstrom gave a real interesting presentation about using gas wells as dewatering wells in a municipal solid waste landfill and putting pumps down in the wells to pull the water out. And he had a lot of interesting data on how that works and things like that. At the time, Subtitle D was really just kicking in 1990s, early 1990s. So we had several presentations on what it was going to look like. What the heck was HDPE? How did we end up with HDPE instead of EPDM or PVC or things like that? And so that type, generic.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, you're making me feel kind of old because that's when I started speaking was options for Texas. I think the first thing I spoke on was full cost accounting, and back then you'd get a copy of all the proceedings. It was like this thick, and I've recycled mine. I wish I had saved one or two of them, but yeah, that's a trip down memory lane. But I do agree with some of those, just examples of what folks are doing. Anybody, yeah.
But just perhaps a topic to think about, depending on how far down the road it goes, is something related to PFAS.
I think toxicology may have given a presentation. We still don't have specific waste-related information to share, but we may soon. So.
Yeah, I was just going to echo the idea about PFAS. I think, there's sure to be a good discussion about that. And what my next point's going to be, please don't forget to include a robust discussion of organics, given that it's such a large percentage of what we deal with.
Thanks, Teresa.
Anyone else?
Okay. All right, and I also wanted to,
I'm sorry. I wouldn't mind, like some of the future challenges, like the lithium-ion battery stuff and things like that are coming down the road that we've got to start figuring out.
Great, thank you. All right, with some new members on board, I wanted to also plug our MSW newsletter. We send this out around quarterly, sometimes a little bit more often than that. That's where you're going to find out about upcoming events like webinars, as well as reminders such as it's time to submit your annual report, and announcements like announcing our new annual report that was published, as well as when we have form updates, we put that in the newsletter as well. And we did have a form update in the past couple of months for the monitor well data sheet. So we're trying to, we have to allocate staff time appropriately, but we're trying to take some of our forms that the industry uses regularly and make them more user-friendly. And so that was a good one where it's now fillable PDF. It's more straightforward. There's less footnotes hidden here and there. So if there's also forms that y'all use on a regular basis that need a look at, please let us know, because that's a project we continuously have going on. That's all the updates I have.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have one. It's going back to the municipal solid waste report. I just quickly glanced at it. In the past, you always had per capita by COG region. I don't see that now. Is there a reason why it was taken out?
Yeah. Anna, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it was taken out because we couldn't really figure out a way to capture that accurately. Because since landfills take from different counties, and we don't really capture how much is taken from each county. We just capture as a whole how much is taken at that landfill. That's one of the reasons.
Yeah, it is a little bit odd. I mean, I've been at the COG 30-something years, and I've had the data for 30-something years, and now to abruptly stop is a little bit shocking, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand.
Well,
Wasn't the calculation that number in the column before divided by population of the COG? Was that the? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an easy, I understand.
I can go do it, but
Yeah.
it seems that it's something that has been there forever, and just have it stop without any maybe discussion with the COGs. I mean, there are lots of us, and we represent a significant amount of local governments who come to us first for data before they go to the TCEQ. It just would have been nice to know, and so we could have maybe had input.
Okay.
But it's a great report otherwise.
Well, maybe next year you can give that some discussion and maybe talk with the COGs on it. I understand, I see both sides, because it is something I look at all the time, but there is also white noise in it with waste that moves between COG regions for landfills, what have you. So I see both sides. So, okay. That was very political. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Megan, thank you very much. Okay, next up, we're going to have an update from the Business and Program Services section from Santos regarding the SWIFR grant update and application update.
Good morning, everybody. We all sound a little bit more giddy this morning, and I guess it's because we got 15 of the 18 positions filled. And so really good start to the year. The three remaining that we have open are all local government, municipality elected officials, and they all range in population. So can't say we're going to put a full court press on them, but we are going to be looking for nominees that we can bring up. We do have these remaining three positions open until filled, so it's not like we have to wait until we do another broad announcement of these openings to work on filling them. So we'll continue to work with our stakeholders, with TARC, and again with other stakeholders to try to get interest and get those three positions filled as well. But we're up to 15, and so I think that's a really good mark. So we'll also continue to push the proxy option that we have for elected officials, and we'll continue to work on that and see if that can also bring some interest into those three positions. For the COGs, COG update and also the SWIFR update. So I think last time that we met, we're right in the middle of getting all the new COG contracts signed and executed. And this is how we get that 5.49 funding out to the COGs, different COGs, allocated out by an equation that's has some statutory elements to it. We got all the contracts signed and executed. They're all in place. We're beginning to get program applications in from the COGs that kind of detail their budget, also detail at least programmatic ideas on the local projects that they'll be funding throughout the 2 years. So we're starting to go through that process, and we'll have those all in-house by the end of December, and then also approved and executed with the projects, local projects being implemented from then on through August of 25. So we're working on that. We were also talking about the SWIFR federal grant, the Solid Waste Infrastructure for Recycling Grant Program. That's an EPA grant. We did finally get our scope of work and the grant approved by EPA. So we're starting to work on that. We're working internally on developing procedures for the grant itself and selection process. We did kind of run into a little hiccup. We initially went in thinking that the funding was going to be until 2026, and when the award came out, we found that it was only until 2025. So those 12 months that we could have used are kind of truncating everything. But we're continuing to work on some of those things. It's going to be something new for some of the COGs potentially, because there are some federal terms and conditions that they may not be accustomed to having to, to operate under, especially for this grant. But nonetheless, we'll be working with them. We'll come up with different procedures, and at the next quarterly meeting, we should have something a little more structure-wise to present. So with that, y'all have any questions?
So is there a dollar amount that the state was awarded that is available, or how does that work?
So we awarded $471,000.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's the grant program.
It's not going to go very far, so
that's one of the challenges. But again, I'm sorry.
What can the grant be used for?
So that's another great question. Even though the word infrastructure is in the grant, it cannot be used for infrastructure, and so that is one of the hardest challenges, because so many of these rural, and it's also rural based in some way. A lot of these rural folks, like recycling centers, those kind of things, they're really looking to, for infrastructure money to either build a shed or do something, and the grant doesn't allow us to do that. So
you said infrastructure. What about equipment, like a baler? Is that
allow for
infrastructure or equipment?
Doesn't allow for equipment either. So again, we've got some constraints. We're still optimistic that the projects that we're going to be able to fund through this will help rural areas. Will also help some of the COGs and especially some of the strategies and goals that they just put forward in their new regional plans. And so we're still looking to get some good projects out of this.
Sounds like the funding was language was crafted by consultants.
But Santos, we're thinking like contamination, education, studies or not studies?
We're preparing for studies. There were a lot of things in the plans, right, that were just strategic in nature, and the grant can be used to help some of the COGs come up with actual plans that then, once they're set up, they can, of course, reach out to their stakeholders and get those initiated. And so we think that's going to be a really big plus for a lot of these COGs that may have challenges financially in developing those kind of plans. And so we think that's going to be good. A lot of the things we're also looking at are ideas or projects where it is plan development, but they is not exclusive to that cog or that region, but can also be done at other cogs. And so we're definitely looking at things that can go from one area to another area and be implemented as well.
So, go ahead. So Santos, does that mean that the eligible applicants will be the councils of governments
Yes.
and just the COGs?
Yeah.
Thank you.
He answered one of the questions. Although I am curious, do you anticipate there will be a minimum and a maximum that will allow to be awarded within the COGs, or is that just whatever they get and then they can decide how they want to spend it?
It's going to be whatever they get, then they've got some ability to award it as they see, if they're going to go with pass-through projects.
Santos, do you know, you said the funding ends in 2025. Is that to be awarded before 2025 or to be extended
to be expended? It's federal money, and so having done this for a while, there's very to almost no ability to extend out federal money on projects like this.
Any other questions on the grant? I was going to go back. Yeah, I was really happy to see the 15 out of 18. And, you know, I'm one of these that likes I prefer in-person, but there are definitely benefits to the virtual. And I know there's some speed bumps with setting it up initially, but like this morning went pretty well. At least I didn't see any problems. But maybe that'll help in getting some of these, especially if we're trying to do a proxy, for someone. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? All right.
Thank y'all, and thank y'all for serving on the council. Really appreciate that we got 15. So thank y'all.
Okay. Just a few minutes behind. Barbara Combs was going to speak regarding a change to the reporting of garbage per capita, so something that Cheryl was just touching on, and I think it'll overlap a little bit.
Yeah, it will. I'm actually wondering if the discussion about grants would help with solving that problem even, because, okay. Thank you for bringing that up. Oh, okay. Known to not speak up. Testing, is that clear for everybody?
Sure.
Great. Cheryl, your point was such a great segue, because this is what I'm going to clarify today. Garbage per capita is a fabulous tool. It is a scoreboard. It is a goalpost. And without cities having that, and at least counties, or at least the councils of government, they really don't know how to reach that goal of reducing waste. Texas is grateful to have an advisory council. You need to use your team, which is the entire public of the state of Texas. So I can, let's see. That? Great. You are currently, actually I haven't seen the 2022 report. This is from the 2021. My assumption was that you're continuing to report it. You currently report garbage per capita. Please note at the bottom of 2021, the 7.09 was your total. And it's easy to get that total number because you're taking the total that's how we calculate garbage per capita. Your total pounds of garbage for that jurisdiction, for that state, divided by the population. So in the case of Heart of Texas, which is the one council of government I'm going to focus on for the purpose of this presentation, they had 860,000 tons of garbage. You need to convert that to pounds, so it's a 1.7 billion pounds. You divide that by the population, and what they're using, and Cheryl, the reason they had to take this out is they're using the population of that council of government. And that population doesn't match that number of pounds. You get then a pounds of 4,562 pounds per year, which you divide by 365, and you get the 12.5 pounds per person per day in the city of Waco. My study of this started back in 2017 when I sat down in a coffee shop in Waco with the recycling coordinator saying, "What are you doing? You weren't hit by a hurricane. What's going on here?" And she didn't know. She had no idea. I eventually was able to understand what's going on. This is the Heart of Texas Council of Government, and here's the data from 2021. What I want you to notice is there are 4 landfills. Anybody that wants to move over to the right, please, I do want you to see this. Focus on landfill 241D. Republic is here today. This is your Itasca landfill, wonderful landfill, big landfill, serving a large community of over 18 different counties. These 18 different counties ship their waste to the Itasca landfill. Now, remember, you've got 4 landfills there. I'm just looking at one of them. So that one landfill generates 403,000 tons. And so those 18 different counties are shipping their tons, totaling 403,000 tons to the Itasca landfill, which is great. But when you report it, we need the Itasca landfill to report by county. Here's my total tons. Here's my total number of counties. Please report the number of tons by county. And then Cheryl and all the councils of government will be good to go. They'll have their data. They'll have better data than they've ever had because it'll be by the council of government. And that's what they need, because then you're going to have a team working in the same direction, pulling in the same direction, and you won't have 7.25 pounds per person per day for the state of Texas in 2023 or 2022. It's not going to go up. It's going to go down. And what I want to share with you is what that creates is, remember that 7.09 pounds per person per day in I need to look at I've got my reading glasses on and I can't see that. Anyway, 2021, 7 pounds, 0.09. In 2001, 20 years ago, you were at 7 pounds, 0.18. That's 0.09 of a pound reduction in 20 years. That's a 1.3% reduction in waste for the state of Texas. If you measure your garbage per capita and you get your whole team to work with you, we can get to a 14% reduction in waste. You do that by letting all the COGs and all the counties know what their garbage per capita ranking is. When this article came out, or there's one landfill in the state of Texas that is able to track the garbage, the tons by city. And these 5 cities do get the benefit of that data. And when they knew that, when they got that knowledge in 2018, through an article that was written in Frisco Style magazine, anyway, Richardson saw that they were at the bottom of the heap. Frisco had 3.5 pounds per person per day in 2019, and Richardson had 5.23 pounds per person per day. And we only knew this data because of the fabulous website that is here for the landfill. I'm not suggesting we do that. I know that's too complicated. I know that landfills don't want to do that and track it by city. But I'm just saying, it's not going to be hard once Cheryl or the councils of government has this data by county or by councils of government. You can more easily split out the cities by, the percentage of the population that has that. So what I'm trying to ask, and my ask is that I'm requesting that the landfills, when they report that total data of how many counties, but each county, you need to circle back and equal the total tons. Each county, the 18 counties, could identify what okay, so that isn't going to go, each county isn't going to go in the report, but at least you'll have the councils of government data when it's consolidated by a staff member. And perhaps the staff on councils of government can help assist with this. If there's, when I was pushing for this in March of this year, I met with Mr. Neerman, Commissioner Jenica, and Lindley, and immediately Neerman said, we have a numerator problem. I mean, he knew, he could see it very quickly and empathize that this would be a great way to report it. But he's leaving it up to you to do the right thing and to get this tons per, get the pounds per person per day, the garbage per capita, will go down and we'll make much more progress. You know, we're 29th in the country. Texas is, and Oklahoma's ahead of us. They do about 6.5 pounds per person per day. We don't want that to happen, you know? And in the world, the United States has 4% of the population, and we consume 12% of all the resources. You are the Resource Recovery Advisory Council. We are, you know, managing these resources for future generations. That's your directive.
So let me just clarify in 30 seconds. Tell me specific, because I'm not sure the data's there, and I've got a couple comments when you're done. But just so, what are you asking for?
I'm okay, if we go, the way they're reporting it now is they give you they give TCEQ in 17-page, you know, form that they have to fill out. They're being asked how many counties dump. 18 for Itasca. What's your total tons? And that's the problem, is they give the total tons. What I'm asking is they report, when they tell you what county, tell us what tons from that county.
Where are you going to get that data?
When
that waste goes to 18 counties goes to that landfill, they don't track the tonnage by county. So you're not going to get tonnage by
even
county,
if it's
so you
ballpark,
can't get per capita.
Even if it's ballpark.
It's going to be a real big ballpark, and it's not going to be very valid.
Even if it's a lot more valid than having 18 different, Harris County's tons being credited to Waco? No.
It's your landfill. I'll let you respond.
I mean, even you look at transfer stations too. Different counties bring into different transfer stations, so we're tracking it from the transfer station. Or if you have a hauling company that services 2 or 3 counties but brings it to one landfill, the billing and all that is from that specific hauling company.
Crossing city lines would be an absolute headache. I mean, think of Dallas. You got 5, 10 different cities right next to each other. But the county, Tarrant County, I mean, you know that those garbage collectors are picking up pretty much in that primarily in that county.
So
he nodded his head. That was a yes. They are collecting within that county. Tarrant County is big. Denton County is big. Dallas County is big. Travis County is big. We can spend, we got some grant money. We can look into this and try and figure it out because it's too important. You can get a 14% reduction in waste. Yeah, okay.
Okay. So I've been doing this 30 years, and I like your passion for it, and trust me, I would love to see recycling rates increase as well. But a couple things, and you're mixing topics here. First of all, getting it down to a county level is very hard to do. It just is. And so, and then you even just said, well, even if you have to estimate it. Well, if you start estimating it, now you go from having good data to assumptions.
It's
And
better than
hold
what
on, I
we've
get
got
to
right
finish
now.
now. I get to
Okay,
finish.
sorry.
So you're going to have per capita that's going to be very subjective as to how accurate it is. Secondly, with folks that have a high per capita, at the end of the day, when I work with clients and they want to recycle, it's not, they don't lose sleep over what the per capita rate is, 7 pounds, 12 pounds. When they're looking at diverting, they're trying to figure out what's the most cost-effective way to do it. Organics is a big one and the other materials, but at the end of the day, it costs money to do it. And if you're 100 miles away from a MRF, we see folks say it's just not worth it. So you're kind of mixing topics, and I'm not against what you're saying, but it's a little complicated. That's all I have.
Those people that come to you don't know which programs are going to be diverting the most material. We didn't know until we saw that Frisco had a 3 pounds per person per day, that they'd had the best C&D program in the state. Now we know why they're at 3 pounds per person per day. So those people that come to you, those cities that want to know about recycling, what programs are they going to pick? How are they going to get the biggest bang for their buck if they don't do their garbage per capita appropriately? And yes, a ballpark number is okay. It's not that mushy when you're talking tons and tons, over 1 billion pounds of material. It's okay if they're off by 100 or 200 tons. I really don't have an issue with that. What I do is when we're piling on 18 different counties into a population that has only 6 counties.
I'll just point out, since you showed the North Texas Municipal Water District data.
Yes, sir.
So we have 5 solid waste member cities, and they pay based on the percentage of waste that they deliver to our facilities. So we have to track it, but you were pointing out specifically Frisco, and if there's recycling that occurs, they are not required to deliver their waste to any of our facilities. So, for example, Frisco, probably starting around 5 years ago, maybe further than that, they divert most, if not almost all, of their construction and demolition debris to a MRF, where it's recycled. So that's,
right. And
so
it
that's
shouldn't
why
be
their number,
counted.
but that's why their number,
right.
but that's not, that you're,
The C&D is,
again, you're mixing and,
No,
you're
I'm
mixing
not.
and matching, because
No.
you're talking about disposal.
no, I'm saying they were able to divert their C&D so they don't count it. And that's why the number's so low at 3 pounds, because they do divert. No, it's totally,
But you are also comparing them to Richardson, which is not participating in that program.
I know, and that's why they're at 5 pounds per person per day. I am totally agreeing with what you're saying. Because they don't have a C&D program. Is my phone on still? Because Richardson does not have a construction demolition program, Allen and Frisco share the C&D program that Frisco manages. And
It's not accurate, but
okay,
go ahead.
all right, but Richardson does not. But Richardson, until they knew that they were at the worst, and the article pointed out that the Richardson had a policy of subsidizing their garbage collection, I don't even know what they did. I haven't even had to visit these cities. Because they have this data now and knew where they ranked, they knew their scoreboard, they knew where they stood. They were able, Richardson changed their policies. I don't know what they did. The numbers don't lie. And it's not mixing, it's not diluting any information, because they didn't have C&D. Therefore they aren't recycling their C&D. They have a 5 pounds per person per day disposal.
I think Cheryl.
I do know how hard it's going to be to collect this by county, and I'm not sure if that's actually what my needs are. But going back to your question about what an entity needs to know to recycle or divert, I think maybe the easier step is for them to do a waste stream analysis so they know what is actually being produced within their entity. They can go and measure it and see how much, and that can help them decide what programs to implement.
There are so many studies on waste management plans. I helped advise doing the one for Sacramento, California. The data's out there. I mean, you could almost identify, based on the SIC codes of the manufacturers in that city,
Actually,
what kind of waste stream
when
they
we've
have.
had, our local governments do an actual waste stream analysis, they have found some ahas that, so using national data isn't actually always the best way, because a rural entity produces totally different than a suburban or urban.
Right.
So all I'm saying is, if a city wants to look at, or, you know, unincorporated part of a county, if they know what's in their geographic area, what they're trying to reduce, that would be the first step. If they're not going to get it by county, which they're not going to get, it's just not feasible. That if your goal is to help them decide what to reduce or what to recycle, that's the step that they can do now.
I'm just saying
and not
SIC
rely on national data.
I'm just saying SIC codes help too. I'm sorry, because they identify what kind of manufacturers.
Thank you.
Good point. I'm sorry. But don't assume that we can't get the county number if the TCEQ would authorize this. This advisory council would authorize to have that data collected by county from the landfills.
I just go on record, I don't agree with that. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't plan to work 30 more years, so I don't know if it's going to happen in my working lifetime, to be honest. It's just that if you look at Harris County's going up to that landfill, they're doing it on probably not every day, but they're like, this landfill is at capacity, we're going to divert because this is another one of our landfills. So it's not always standard each year or even each month where the waste is going.
And Barbara, in a perfect world, I would love to have data by county. That'd be awesome. But it's just with these regional landfills, and I've seen it just when I do a study for a small area that involves, even within a several county area, trying to identify it, it becomes really hard. So.
But hard doesn't mean it's impossible. It doesn't mean.
I would make the argument it becomes cost prohibitive, but thank you very much.
You know, I got just a more simple implementation. So, a small company like Texas Pride operates in 4 different counties, uses 6, 7 different landfills down in the Houston, Galveston region. Are we supposed to, every time they bring a truck to the landfill, are we supposed to say, what county did you pick this up in? And if we ask them that, by what legal authority do we have to ask a potential competitor where they're getting their revenue from? All right, they're gonna raise up their constitutional right and say, I'm not telling you where it came from. Or better yet, the driver in Spanish is gonna say, Harris County. He's just going to give you an answer. There's no way to validate it. There's no way to check it. There's no way to tell where the truck came from. There's no GPS trackers. He could have come from Chambers County. He could have come from Harris County. He could have come from Montgomery County. He could have come from any of those counties. We never know.
Your competitor, though, isn't giving away the customer name. He's just saying the general area, and it's no different than you're having to report what you're having to report right now. It's just a little more refined.
It's another thing that has to be repeated at any one site 400 to 500 times a day, times 270 days a year, and then it's got to be compiled, and then it's got to be reported. And it's easy to just say, well, the landfill should do this. I got another one for you. If the counties want the information, then the counties should do it. Or if the cities want the information, then the cities should do it. They have the ability to do it.
How would they get the data? I'd love to know.
But the cities do it, so it's just the way you do it there. They collect their garbage, they take it to the landfill, and they add their tickets up. All right? But the individual.
But that's a city truck, so how would they can get it from their city trucks, but
Yeah.
they can't get it from the commercial trucks. Can they?
No.
No, so the data wouldn't be available unless you authorize it as the advisory
So
committee.
we're gonna make the landfills collect the data.
There are only 250 counties. There are over 1,800 cities.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be easier to do 250 counties over 1,800 cities?
Yep, sure.
Good.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, some of the other things, we've got approval of meetings and those things, but before I do that, and I had a miscommunication with Anna, it was my fault, I apologize, but I did want to give just a real quick update Scott, myself, Richard, McHale with the City of Austin, who's here. A number of us attended the U.S. Mayor's Municipal Waste Management Association meeting Monday through Wednesday in Minneapolis this week. Real good meeting, a number of interesting topics. I'm just going to give you a real quick update. You know, it was a number of good technical sessions. We had a strong contingency from Texas. You know, Brenda was there, Haney from Lubbock, Richard from Austin, a couple of folks from Houston, including retired folks, Harry Hayes and Everett Bass. But they had a number of good topics on the EPR. The PFAS was a big issue. One of the things that was interesting, they talked about waste characterization studies, something we were just kind of touching on there, in Seattle and Atlanta and Minneapolis, and it was interesting topics and discussion. And to me personally, one of the topics that was most interesting was on MRFs and glass coming back in some of the MRFs. I know there's a argument of, you know, get the glass. Some people just get glass out of MRFs. Some you're taking it then on the front end. But it was a real interesting topic discussion there. And then we closed with the tour of the Hennepin waste to energy facility, which was real interesting. So just passing it along. It was a good time. Scott, I don't know if you had anything.
Sure, thanks, Dave. Yeah, I think you provided a good summary, and I was just looking back over the agenda. I know you mentioned PFAS, but Judy Sheehan, who's with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, she does a really good job from a national perspective in looking at regulatory and other legislative issues. So she's very closely tracking the PFAS issue and representing that issue from a municipal perspective, you know, mainly in terms of whether it's a wastewater, water, or landfill facility in terms of what the potential impact of PFAS may be. So even though she's looking at that from a municipal perspective, I think there's benefits to private sector landfills as well. So it sounds like from her point of view, you know, that's still a work in progress, but I think she's a great resource for providing a perspective on that. In fact, if you would ever want to have, I know, going back to the trade fair idea as far as potential speakers, I know you always want to be careful about, you know, who's presenting, and it's not, you know, say one of us consultant types or what have you, but I think she could be a really good resource to talk about those regulatory issues like PFAS from more of a national perspective as that's affecting local communities. And Richard, is it Sheehan? So, yeah, I have it. I should have it on my phone to get to you after the meeting.
And we always welcome consultants, outside presenters at trade fair. It's just we have to, as we kind of discussed, it can't be a sales pitch, can't be we can't promote a company over another, so have to scrub all that out as long as it's technical content.
Anything else, Scott?
No, other than just looking up Judy's name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Richard, did you have anything you wanted to add, or? Okay. All right. Well, just passing that along, so it's a good conference. Okay, so let's move to, I don't know if you folks had a chance to read the minutes in the packet that came out to you earlier this week.
Dave, I have one correction. I was not at the July meeting. I was in England.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I thought I heard you.
All right. Thank you for that correction. If you've, other than that one correction, any other comments, corrections? Okay, I was good. Sorry, Cheryl, I didn't realize you hadn't.
I move we accept the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
All right, first, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Okay, the next item, we've got proposed dates for the 2024 meetings. They're listed there, January 11th, April 11th, July 11th, and October 10th. For some of you that I know are very organized, that can look at your Outlook calendars and know in 30 seconds if we have a conflict with anything. Anybody have concerns with those dates?
And just to let you know, I do have those dates reserved. The room was
Right.
reserved for those dates.
Okay. Well, and what we can do is, block those dates. If everybody would go, look at their, schedules for next year. Hopefully it's early enough that you can move those. And then just get back to Anna or me, email me, and we'll talk about it. But otherwise, we're gonna move forward with those dates. Okay. Let's see, I don't think we had any other action items here that we had to talk about. Any questions, Steve?
I've got something I'd like to share with you.
Sure.
Fantastic, everybody, a little fun fact.
This is mine.
Just to share. Honor of teaching this topic at Texas State University in the springtime, and I was conveying to my class the results of the recycling market development plan, and told them that in 2019, Texas, well, for one thing, we generate 10% of all the municipal solid waste in the nation. We've got 9% of the population. Our economy is more robust than average, so we've got to have at least 10% of all the municipal solid waste in this nation. And I was explaining to them that we landfilled in 2019 36 million plus tons, and we recycled almost 13 million tons for a total of 49.5 million tons a year. And one of the students asked me, he said, well, how big is that? How big is that? I said, that's a very good question. Let me think about it. So what I did was let's just assume that 49.5 million tons got to be transported. And let's just assume, for the sake of trying to put a size to it, that it's 1,000 pounds a cubic yard, because I know what a lot of landfills strive to get that density. Some do, some don't, but let's just use that for a starting point. So if that 49.5 million tons has a density of 1,000 pounds a cubic yard, that's 98, almost 99 million cubic yards a year. A standard 60-foot rail car holds 174 cubic yards. You divide that out, that makes 568,368 rail cars a year. You divide that number of rail cars by 60 feet, or multiply it by 60 feet, and that's 34 million feet of railroad cars. From Texarkana to El Paso is 812 miles. You divide that 812 into the 6,459 miles of trains, that's 7.9 trains per year of municipal solid waste from El Paso to Texarkana, which is a lot of tonnage. Now, if we look at it and go a different density, and let's say it's in compactor trucks at 500 pounds a cubic yard, not all of it's that dense, some denser, but let's just say it's half that dense in the collection of it. That's 15.8 trains a year of volume from Texarkana to El Paso. And if we back up and say, well, what is it like at the curb? And we'll just say it's 100 pounds a cubic yard at the curb at the point of generation. It's 79 trains a year of municipal solid waste from Texarkana to El Paso. Just to give you some idea of how big it is. It's an astonishing number to me. And y'all, I'll be willing to stand corrected if y'all don't think my math is right, but I ran it past some of my master's degree mathematics students, and they said it was right. So anyway, just wanted to share that, because then we sit and we talk about this stuff all the time. But you know, if we had 7.9 trains stopped from Texarkana to El Paso, this issue would get a whole lot more attention than it gets. So, thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you. Okay. Any public comments? I don't know if anyone's online.
Yes, we do have a couple of public questions. During Barbara's presentation, let's see, Heather Hansen asked if the Swiffer grants could fund waste stream analysis. Not
Should
sure.
Santos come up?
So there are some things that, again, like we talked about, that the grant can't fund or can. That would be probably data collection. And data collection fits in another area. So that'd be something that we would probably not fund at this time.
Okay. No, I appreciate that.
And then we had one more. Teresa Finch asked if you could repeat the Texarkana and El Paso information.
Okay. Repeat all of that?
Not all of that.
Yeah.
Or we could send it,
Yeah,
whatever
if you
works
could
best.
send it. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
That'd be good. Okay. All right. That's everything on the agenda, folks. Any closing comments, anything I missed?
You didn't miss it, but I did want to also express my appreciation to all the years of service that Richard McHale has provided to the advisory council, and have us all give him that look of appreciation and maybe embarrass him a little bit. So, but no, we sincerely appreciate all that you've done. All right.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. All right. Well, with that, we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.